Welcome back into Cougar Sports Saturday, powered by KSL Sports. Kyle Ireland, Mitch Harper. Mitch, did BYU just get a little love from the Big Ten as number one Michigan gets taken down at home by Wisconsin? Big win earlier this season. I felt like I remember watching that game as BYU took down Wisconsin earlier this year in non-conference, and BYU obviously only one loss on the season so far, but Michigan, number one overall team in the country, undefeated until today, gets taken down by a team that BYU had already beaten.
They did, and Wisconsin, BYU crushed them back at the Delta Center back on November 21st, 98-70. Today, Wisconsin takes down the number two ranked.
Number two.
Michigan Wolverines, number one in the net rankings is the Michigan Wolverines, and Wisconsin was an 18.5-point underdog, and they go into the Chrysler Center and win over the Michigan Wolverines. So that's a nice little data point to BYU's resume, which, again, BYU, we know they're a good team. The net ranking for BYU is 9 entering today, but just, again, those sort of things matter, because I really thought that Wisconsin win was going to be much ado about nothing on the resume. Because really, when you kind of dig deep into BYU's non-conference, you can poke some holes at it. The effort was clearly there, but some of those teams have not become maybe tier 1A in terms of quality of opponent. The one being UConn, who is one of the best, and BYU lost that game. But always remember, that was a game where BYU basically played without two of its starters. Kaba goes out. Moo Davis was sidelined with violation of team rules. So keep that in mind.
Do you think if that game was played now, that the result would be any different?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think if BYU played, and UConn just beat DePaul today 72-60, and UConn's still really good, but if it was in Salt Lake at the Delta Center, or if it was in Provo, yeah, I think BYU wins. I think, BYU is an outstanding team, and what's kind of crazy is that they're being slept on a little bit. They've won 11 consecutive games, longest win streak for BYU basketball in 16 years. I mean, that's almost 2 decades where you're in a win streak that you don't see very often, and you've got wins against Wisconsin, Miami, Dayton, Clemson, K-State on the road, Arizona State. So P4 names, you're knocking them off and taking those teams down. So BYU, excellent basketball team. I think one of the best, and they got a profile that says they are a potential national title contender, and that path to chasing that continues tonight with taking on the Utah Utes, 8 p.m. at the Huntsman Center, which you can listen to beginning at 7 right here on KSL News Radio. Some scores around the Big 12 today, Kyle. Very interesting score. West Virginia in Morgantown takes down Kansas 86-75. The number 22 ranked Jayhawks fall to the Mountaineers. I got to say, Kyle, ever since BYU joined this Big 12, Kansas is just mid. They are so mediocre. They lose all the time. They probably should be 0-3 in Big 12 play. It took a miracle back on Tuesday to take down TCU at Allen Fieldhouse. They go into overtime and win that game. It was a massive comeback. They were down 14, I believe. And Kansas is just mediocre. Darren Peterson gets his points, but he's not closing out games. Kansas, I'm not sold on them being a Big 12 title contender.
It seems almost like BYU and Arizona and the new group of the Big 12 that has come in the last few years, like that's replacing some of the old Big 12. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of that new blood coming in. We talked about how you said Kalani's, trying to make the football team the new blood of college football as far as the national perspective is concerned. That's what KY is doing with this men's basketball team in only year 2. The fact that, they had the success that they had last year and they're building on it. And obviously this group is so talented, Mitch. And we talked about it earlier this week when they just thumped Arizona State. I was watching the second half sitting next to you, Mitch, and I was bored in the second half. I was honestly bored because this team is just so dominant. They just put the hammer down, and ASU is not going to be the top tier of the Big 12, but after the game, Bobby Hurley, and you put out the video on social media, like the only thing that they were able to stop is the fans from getting Chick-fil-A. That was his quote. BYU was just dominant. They're such a force. They have such length defensively. They didn't even have Kaba Keita in that game. They had 10 blocks, and BYU had 5 of them in like 17 minutes. their depth is showing off, and they've been able to withstand some injuries. And they, I think that the chemistry and the part that I was asking Eric Mika about earlier was, how this team has really come together. A prime example of it was that play between the big three that resulted in that big 3-pointer against Arizona State that got the crowd on their feet, with Rob just throwing that crazy pass from, saving it from out of bounds. Richie has a career high against ASU like he did last year. This team is just, every single game, Mitch, they're doing something that surprises me. That AJ makes a play that I'm like, wow, like that's never been done before. But I shouldn't be surprised anymore because of the talent that they have. They're so elite. And I really do think the reason why I asked that question about the UConn game is because I do think if they played right now, BYU would beat UConn.
I agree. And I think when you bring up the new guard in the Big 12, the flag bearer in this league is Houston, and they took down Baylor in Waco 77-55. Baylor drops to 0-3 in Big 12 play. Houston 15-1, 3-0 in league play. Currently in action in the first half, Arizona State in Tempe, fresh off that performance against BYU where they got hammered, and the only good thing they did was hold off Chick-fil-A. They're currently up 18-11 on K-State in Tempe. That one's on Peacock. We'll keep tabs on that one. Let's take a break. We'll get to more BYU basketball talk, but also BYU football. Could BYU in 2026 become the next Indiana? We'll hit on that next here on Cougar Sports Saturday.